All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba. European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. You know how we're going to be enjoying tonight. We got the Heater playing tonight. We also have Team USA, Four Nations face-off. We'll be sitting on the couch in the Zaslow Mansion family room, probably in my underwear, but with an ice cold Johnny Cuba in my hand. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. And joining us now, one of our favorites on ESPN Radio, Michelle Smallmon, Unsportsmanlike, 6:10 a.m. Eastern, every morning on ESPN Radio. Hello, Michelle. How you doing?
Zaz, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I know we tried to link up last week, but things were so crazy for us with the Unsportsmanlike crew in New Orleans. So thank you for accepting my apologies that this was delayed, but it's great to be with you.
No, totally cool. So how many times have you done Radio Row?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say this was maybe my fourth or fifth time. First time
so you've done it a bunch
of a show, but I was a producer for a long time, and I went once. I went to the Houston Super Bowl, Atlanta, New England, 28-3 with Rosillo and Cannell. And then when I was producing in St. Louis and we were the home of the Rams, I think we went 3 times. I know we went Dallas, I think maybe another one in New Orleans. I can't remember, but in Indy, I think. So maybe 3 or 4 I've done.
All right. So you've done it as a producer and as a host. Mm-hmm. You've done it local radio and national radio. I've been on that end too, producer or host. How much, what a world of difference it is from the producer side to the host side. It is for people who don't understand, it is such a miserable experience when you're the local producer trying to chase down, you're running after people in radio. Oh, pretty please, can so-and-so join our show? Do you have it? And they're like, oh, we'll see if we can fit you in. It's the worst experience when you're a producer. As a host, and I would imagine in your spot, on the network, what a pleasure it probably was.
Yeah, different challenges and different roles. You're right. Being the producer is by far the hardest because you book a lot of these guests in advance. You get these pitches. Hey, Drew Brees is going to be here promoting X, Y, Z. Do you want to have him on the show? Of course we want to have Drew Brees on the show. But then it's your job to find Drew Brees on Radio Row. And let me tell you, we talk for a living. A lot of these interviews go late. So Drew Brees is supposed to join us at 8:15. There's a chance he's late. There's a chance he's all the way across the room. And it's my job to not only find him and bring him back to set, but wrap it up with the interview that he's doing so we can get him on our clock. So that is very stressful as a producer. I empathize with all of the producers, national and local, that have to hunt people down on Media Row. But when you're on the other side of things, you're doing way more talking. I lost my voice, I think, day 2, because you're talking on the show. You're doing interviews afterwards. You're meeting with clients. You're out at happy hours with people that you haven't seen in a long time. You're talking at a high level. And that was really challenging because we were getting up at 2:30 in the morning. Obviously, no complaints there. You're happy to do it, but that doesn't.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay to complain about I think it's okay.
Yeah, but it also doesn't lend to your voice being in tip-top shape. And I lose my voice anyway. I have a deep tone, as you can tell. We're just coming back to life here because it was pretty bad for a while. But yeah, definitely easier, I would think, on our side now from the hosting side, because we're not trying to run around Radio Row and find these guests. That's a tough gig.
Who was like the biggest celebrity walking around Radio Row that maybe you didn't get on the show that you would have wanted to have?
Oh, that's a good question. We saw a lot of people walking around. We saw Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow. Myles Garrett was there, but they all came afterwards. Obviously, the early window is probably the least desirable window for. But
how about like actors? Did you see a bunch of actors or actresses? Were they there also doing stuff?
So I saw a lot of celebrities, but not on Media Row. I saw a lot of celebrities at parties, but not on Radio Row. And I don't think I could slide up to Cardi B and be like, hey, you want to come on Sportsmanlike tomorrow? 7:15's open. I don't think she's going to want to pop up early. I talked to John Hamm at a party, St. Louis guy.
That's a good one. Okay.
Yeah, I had interviewed him many times in the past because he's from St. Louis, huge hockey fan. And when the Blues went on their run in 2019, he was around. And so he was very happy to jump on and do all these interviews about his team. So chatted with him a little bit, didn't have him on the show. I'm trying to think who else we saw that was, I was at a party that Shaq was at. I've never seen Shaq in person.
Oh, really?
You know that it's huge, but like seeing him in person be a full chest and head taller than the rest of the crowd was really a sight to see. So I would say probably John Hamm and Shaq were my two celebrities that we didn't get on the show that I would have liked to.
How was doing the show in the Airstream? That was my home for 5 months during the college football season. How'd you enjoy that?
Thank you for letting us use your home. It was amazing. We had the best time with the Airstream. It was such a cool setup because not only did we have the actual Airstream, but we had those, they were mimicked to look like wrought iron gates to look like one of those classic New Orleans homes, which was really, really cool. So you're walking around and you're seeing all of these traditional style sets. And for ours to be so unique and have not only the Airstream feature, which was cool for the guests, but have it look like it was part of New Orleans, I think was awesome. So I'm very jealous of you that you got to do shows from the Airstream consistently throughout the fall. It was a great, great setup.
All right, so doing morning radio, you know, my fans here, they've heard me talk about, especially if they've been following me forever. You know, I did morning radio here in Miami for 7 years, all right? So I get what that's about. Best part of doing morning radio on ESPN Radio is what?
Well, this has nothing to do with the actual time slot, but it's the people that I work with. I cannot tell you how amazing our crew is. I feel that every day, but coming off of this week at the Super Bowl, I just feel so grateful to sit next to Evan and CC every day. I feel so grateful to have Nuno, Pat, Jovante, Rob, our social and digital expert, Justin Craig, Liam Cohen, like our bosses, so many people on the production side of things that got everything set up for us. We just are so lucky to get to work with the best of the best. And, you know, it's like being on any team. When everybody else is operating at an elite level, it makes you want to be that much better. And I really love working with people that I respect, like, and trust, but that also are so good at what they do that make me want to be the best version of myself. So that's really cool. I would also say it's very cool to be the first people to talk about something every day, to like set the tone and to have people wake up and have our conversations be a part of their morning routine. That's pretty special.
That's what I always liked. I liked being first. I liked being first to react. What is something about doing the show that you wish the audience knew that they don't know?
I would say this. It is very hard to keep your mind right when you don't sleep. And by that, I mean, I can do all the prep in the world, have all my notes, my stats, my points. I've read all the articles. I've listened to all the sound bites. I'm ready to come and bring the heat. When you stay in New Orleans for the Super Bowl and then you fly overnight and take a car directly to the studio and you haven't slept 1 minute.
I was wondering, Evan said the other day, you guys just got back this morning. Like this morning, show starts at 6 a.m. How'd you get back this morning?
We landed, CC and I took the flight back. We landed at, I think, like 3:30, 3:45 a.m. In New Jersey, had to get a car, get back to the city. He and his wife were dropped off. I went and I came straight to the studio. So you could do all the prep in the world that you want, but that doesn't mean that your execution is going to be A+ when you're on fumes. And I had no voice. I had no brain cells operating. I think we did the best that we could, but that's one thing I don't think people really understand. If you have a late night out, whether you were partying or not, or you get no sleep and you roll into your job, you may still be able to execute without having to be like at the elite level that you normally are. For us to do that with millions of people listening and watching is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. So I would say that was probably and continues to be the biggest challenge, is wanting to do the best that you can on limited sleep.
It's one thing I've learned since I started working for ESPN Radio as opposed to local radio, where if something happens, like I had to fly to Baton Rouge for 1 weekend for college football tailgate, and I almost got stuck in a connection. And what I'm trying to say is you have to get to where you're supposed to go.
Have to.
It doesn't matter how. It's not like you can say, hey, I got a problem here. I got stuck in so-and-so airport, missed the flight. I'm not going to make it. It's no, you need to figure out how to make it. And that may mean renting a car and driving the entire night. to make sure that you get to the show on Saturday morning.
Oh, I've done that. When I was producing Russillo and Cannell, we went on a college football tour. And first we went to Madison, Wisconsin. Our second trip was to Florida State. Danny Cannell, obviously Florida State. So this was a really big deal. DK's homecoming. And we were based in Bristol. So Hartford to Tallahassee, not many direct flights, Hartford to Tallahassee. So we did the show. Steve Cerruti, who's now doing great things with The Ringer, was my co-producer at the time. And we were on the same flight. It was supposed to be Hartford to Charlotte, Charlotte to Tallahassee. So we go to leave in Hartford. And this was after our show. Our show ended at 4 p.m. So let's call it like a 5:30 flight, 5:36. There was snow in Hartford. They had to de-ice the plane. We land in Charlotte, and it's like crazy to get to your connection in Charlotte. We're running through the Charlotte airport, past those rocking chairs. You know what I'm talking about? And we get to the gate. As we get to the gate, the plane is detaching, and it's like getting ready to go to the runway and take off. So we missed it by minutes. And we're saying to the gate agent, like, we have to get to Tallahassee. We have to be there tomorrow. And she's like, well, then you better get a car. And so, because there was no more flights to Tallahassee that night. So we had to rent a car, and we drove through the backwoods of Georgia and Florida to get there. I think we rolled up at like 7:30 in the morning, and we had to be on set by 9. So just enough time for us to shower, eat some breakfast, and get to set. But you got to do what you got to do. And if that means flying overnight or driving overnight to be there to do the job, we got to get it done.
How has Evan Cohen handled the Jimmy Butler situation?
I would say poor to very poor.
Oh, wow.
I think that he has come around now, but in the beginning, we were giving him a lot of trouble, and you can speak to this. Evan is a diehard Miami Heat fan, and we were telling him that after all of this Jimmy Butler drama, that Heat culture was dead. And we would say, like, RIP Heat culture. How does it feel to know that this is no longer there? And so I think that that really bothered him, and he didn't handle that part of it well. But he knew that it was an inevitability and that Jimmy was going to have to move on. And I think he's come to the acceptance part of the 5 stages of grief.
How do you work with Canty? Do you ever sit there and say, wow, this guy's a little bit too tall?
Every day. I don't think people realize how short I am. I got that a lot in New Orleans. People being like, wow, you're really small. I'm like, yeah.
Really? How tall are you?
I'm 5'4", but the way that our seats are propped up now, that people are going to notice if they watch us on the television side. Next time you check us out on TV and it's the wide shot of the 3 of us, look where my feet are. There's a big wooden box underneath it because my feet don't hit the ground. They have to prop my seat up so that Evan Canty and I on television look like we're the same height. When I have flat shoes on, like tennis shoes on, and I'm standing next to him, he's quite literally double my size. I'm 5'4",
too big.
6'8". He's 6'8", and Evan's tall too. He's like 6'1", 6'2". So I look particularly small standing next to those 2 guys. But I think about this a lot, Zaz, because we talk about quarterbacks and we'll say like, wow, he's holding the ball too long. Like, you got to be tougher than that. You got to get up after you get hit like that, or things of that nature. I sit next to this guy who's 6'8", 350, and who is a professional athlete. I'm like, Imagine that guy running at you as fast as he can, wanting to take you down and succeeding. And then you're supposed to just get up. And this is happening over and over and over again, not only in one game, but week to week. It really puts into perspective how tough these guys are, because if Canty tackled me once, I'd be in the hospital in like a full body bag.
Look, Canty's not going to do it with you because you're a female and he's a really large male. But I used to do mornings with an offensive lineman, a former offensive lineman. And one time, like, he showed me, or he pulled, did like a move on me, just to show me something. And how much stronger he was than me. It was very upsetting. And not from a place of I'm sad that he's strong and I'm not strong. It made me like I was scared. It made me feel like I was going to be hurt very, very bad.
Totally. It's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call. Like, if you're ever at the field level of a professional game of any, even college, but really so much at the pros, you see the size, you see the speed. Like, if you've ever been on the sidelines of an NFL game and you hear what it sounds like to get hit, it really puts it into perspective what these guys are enduring week in and week out and what they have to do to get their bodies ready to play.
What did you make of the halftime show? And were we talking about the halftime show so much because the game was so terrible?
I think, yes, we are talking about the halftime show because the game was so boring. I mean, it was just an absolute beatdown. It was
an all-time awful Super Bowl.
It was bad. It was really bad. But that just illustrates how dominant the Eagles were. But I think we would have talked about the halftime show a lot, even if the game was competitive, maybe less so. But I thought what Kendrick did was masterful. The storytelling elements, the way he sequenced the songs. I am somebody who loves revenge. I don't necessarily enact revenge on people. I think the universe handles that. I'm a big karma person. I think if you're good to people and the universe will be good to you. And if you're a terrible person, that's going to come back in one way or the other. And this was a fight that Drake started and he didn't win. And I love that Kendrick Lamar said, okay, I'm going to finish this. And then he went on after making a diss track to win 5 Grammys and perform it at the Super Bowl with 2 of Drake's exes on stage. I mean, this is all-time legendary revenge type stuff. I mean, this whole Super Bowl was revenge. Saquon Barkley, the Giants publicly on Hard Knocks say, we don't want him. We don't think that he's going to be the right fit for us. He goes to Philly, wins a Super Bowl after being a huge reason why. And you had Kendrick at the halftime show. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really well done.
So like you said, there was storytelling. I'm not a rap guy. It's not the kind of music I listen to. I barely know about the Drake Kendrick Lamar beef. David Dennis Jr. has spent months trying to describe it to me. All right. So I know a little bit, but
while you're on it.
But while you're watching the performance, did you understand all of the symbolism? Because I was reading some stuff afterward where I'm like, oh, like it all went over my head. It was like as if I watched an episode of Game of Thrones and I'm reading the next day. Oh, that's what that meant. You know, like I didn't know that I was going to have to solve a riddle while I'm watching the halftime show.
But that's what great art does, right? Great art makes a statement on something. Great art makes you think. Great art is a conversation starter. And that's exactly what Kendrick did, whether it was Uncle Samuel L. Jackson, the American flag, and the symbolism behind all of that, to have Serena Williams come out and do the sea walk the way that she had famously done after a tournament that got a lot of people talking and she took a lot of hate for, to reenact that, which was a nod to Compton, but also on a diss track about her ex. I mean, it's pretty good. There's layers here that Kendrick was trying to weave into the ultimate story that he was trying to tell. And I was at the House of Verizon. I was fortunate enough to get to host a pregame party with Kool-Aid McKinstry of the Saints. And there was a ton of people. We were watching it in a big group. And I missed some of that stuff because when you're watching it, not only in real time, but you're watching it with a group of people, I think it's hard to kind of pick up on all of the little nuances there. But in the wake of it, I've gone back and I read David Dennis's piece. I've read a lot of stuff about it and I rewatched it. And I just think it was brilliant. It was really, really well done.
I want you to help me with something I've been talking about today on the show. Everything going on with the Dallas Mavericks. All right. And clearly this is not a good ownership group. All right. Why isn't the Mavericks fan, and maybe they are and I just haven't seen it, why isn't the Mavericks fan upset with Mark Cuban? And I say that because Mark Cuban chose to sell it to these people. There's no shortage of people who want to buy an American professional sports franchise. Right. If he says, I want to sell the team, then it's going to be 1,000 bidders. Mark Cuban chose to sell it to these people. Why doesn't Cuban get any heat from the Maverick fan?
Because I think it's so much easier to funnel your hatred towards Nico Harrison because he's the one that moved on from the second best player in your franchise's history and arguably one of the 3 best players in the NBA who's in his mid-20s coming off a finals run. So I think it's much easier to be mad at the guy who is the face of that move than it is the guy who had been somebody who was a great steward of the franchise to the fan base for so long. But yeah, I mean, not only to make that move, but then be so lame in reacting to the fans' response to this. Of course, they're going to be devastated. This is the face of their franchise who is coming off a great run, and they felt like they had the runway to get back there for a long time because of this guy. And then you're going to kick fans out of the arena because they're mouthing fire Nico, and you're going to be mad that they're bringing a casket to the arena. Like, I know that it's very intense, all of that stuff. But these are fanatics. These are the reason why you make money, is because people care so much about your organization and your product. You need to take a step back and let them grieve, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're grieving the loss of a once in a generation type player.
What are we watching these days, Michelle Smallmon? When you're not working, you're at home, it's nighttime, there's no big sports on. What TV shows are we watching? Or have you finished Netflix? What are you watching these days?
No, I actually haven't finished Netflix. And it's funny you asked that, because I put out the siren song to my friend yesterday, like, hey, football season is over. Of course, we're going to be watching other sports, but it's not, the schedule's not as intense as it is for football season. So I need a new show. I haven't watched a show or binged a show in a long time. So I'm open to suggestions. I don't know if you have one for me, but.
Well, I'm about to start with my wife. We like watching shows together, I'm about to start. I think it's on, I forget. It's hard to keep track of what streaming service, but I want to watch the show Paradise with Sterling K. Brown. He's the black brother guy from This Is Us.
We love him.
Right. Yeah. So he's like a Secret Service member to the president, who's played by James Marsden, but there's some type of scandal going on. It's called Paradise. I think maybe it's Hulu. It just came out a few days ago. I'm trying to get to watch that. I think you should watch that. Okay,
I'm going to jump on board with that. That sounds amazing. Paradise. Someone suggested to me Severance, which I haven't checked out and would like.
Yeah, I don't know. I obviously I see everybody loves Severance. I don't know. It looks a little bit too weird for me, and I like weird, but I'm not into it. I'm not into it.
I've already done Shrinking, which I thought was great. What was Presumed Innocent on Apple?
Yeah,
we watched kind of as a show. Yeah. We kind of binged that as a show. That one was really good. I like either shows that are like The Office, Parks and Rec, Abbott Elementary, a lighthearted laugh, or I like something that's deep mystery. I love a limited series like Mayor of Easttown was so good. Like a limited series. Give me 7 episodes where I don't know what the ending is going to be.
Mayor of Easttown was a great show.
It was amazing. I'm waiting for something else like that to happen.
Yeah, I recommend Paradise is the next one. Me and my wife are going to sit down and watch together. We'll reconvene and we'll give our thoughts once we finish the show. Michelle, excellent job. 6:10 a.m. Eastern every morning on ESPN. And is it ESPNU? I never remember the TV channel.
ESPN2 for the first 2 hours, then we pop over to ESPNU.
There you go. Great job, Michelle. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.